Hello everybody and welcome back to today's video. So as you can see from the title of this video, I thought I would recall the story of when I stopped a drug deal from happening on my way home from school one day. This story is completely 100% true, although I will be changing the names of people just so I don't give away their actual identity. Although I'm not in the school system anymore, so I mean, if I really wanted to, I could, ruin their lives even more. So this video starts off, it's just a normal day. I'm pretty sure it was last spring, so around maybe 9 months ago was when it happened. I think it was probably like mid-May, maybe towards the end of the year. So it was almost to the end of the year. I was coming home one day, and this was last year, so I was in 8th grade at the time. I used to take the bus home every day from school. So I had this really good friend. For the sake of this video, let's call her Kayla. We lived in the same neighborhood, so that way we would always be on the bus together. And so one day, me and Kayla were just getting on the bus as normal. We were sitting together, we were talking about our day since we didn't really see each other a lot during the day. It was nothing out of the ordinary, everything was going exactly as it usually did. All of the sudden, we were driving down the road. I was almost at my stop because I was one of the first 10 stops on the way home. For some reason, I turned my direction, a sight away from her for some reason. Something had caught my eye, and it was these two older kids. It was on the other side of the bus and maybe like 3 rows back. So the way my bus worked is that kids 7th through 12th grade were on the same bus because that was the time that everybody got out of school. It was the same for all of us, so we would all get on the bus together, and we all lived relatively in the same neighborhood, maybe like 5 miles away from each other. They'd always been on my bus. It's not like they were new or like out of the ordinary or people I'd never seen before. They were people that I had gone through my entire school system with, but they were older. So a little bit of backstory about these two kids. They were both boys, and one of them was actually new to our school system this past year. We'll call him Damon. So Damon was new to our school system this year, and he had moved into our neighborhood, into like one of probably the nicest houses in the neighborhood. Automatically, I think that you just start thinking that he's like a really good kid. Kids always came to my school system every year. It was a big school system, so nothing out of the ordinary again. The only thing a little weird about it is that after knowing him for a while, I had realized that Damon was supposed to be a senior. He apparently did not do well at his old school and got suspended for unknown reasons at the time. And he had come to our school system as an 18-year-old, but he was going into freshman year. An 18-year-old going into the same grade as 15, 14-year-olds. You usually don't stay back 3 grades. So technically he was only 1 grade ahead of me, but he was almost 5 years older than me at the time. So Damon started becoming with really good friends of this boy who also lived in my neighborhood, who at the time was a junior. We'll call him Greg. So Damon and Greg were really good friends. So we're gonna fast forward to the beginning of the story that I was telling you about. It was just one day, me and my friend Kayla, we were just sitting on the bus talking, having a good time. Who was sitting 3 rows back? Now that we know, it was Damon and Greg. At first I didn't think anything of it, but then I continued to look for I don't even know reasons why, but I did. I just kept looking, and I had noticed that Greg had pulled something out of his bag. And I mean, you're on the bus, you're talking to your friends. I was thinking like, oh, maybe he's like pulling out his phone or a charger or something. Now, me being curious, I had continued to watch. Greg opened his bag, pulled out a Ziploc bag, like you put your sandwich in, and there was weed in the bag, just, right out in the open. Obviously, right then and there, I knew that it was a drug deal. Damon starts sifting through his bag too, and I'm like, oh boy, what's gonna happen now? And at this point, I had caught my friend Kayla's attention, and I was like, dude, stuff is going down. You need to watch this, so I can have a second eye, so it doesn't just sound like I'm lying in case I have to tell anybody. I was like, I'm just gonna hope for the best. Maybe he's just like, I got weed. He pulls out a bag full of quarters. $20 worth of quarters, if not more. 80 quarters, just in a bag. The weed and the quarters, they swapped them completely. I was shook to the core. My friend Kayla, she was like, what do we do? She was just as freaked out as I was like, I have no idea what we do. Like, do I tell someone? Do I pretend like I didn't see it? We were like weighing the pros and cons. We were like, well, pros is that like, if we tell someone, then it's not gonna happen again. Cons is like, they can know it's me. Like, you can only narrow it down to a certain amount of people that are on the bus. And granted, there were only like 25, 30 kids on my bus, which isn't a lot when you think about it. My stop was coming up next, and I was like freaking out. I was like, do I tell my parents? Do I tell the bus driver? Who do I tell? We had made the consecutive decision that I would get off the bus, and as I was getting off, I would tell the bus driver, and then just as like a backup story, when my friend Kayla got off later, she was also going to tell the bus driver so that it just wasn't coming from one mouth. I kneeled down, like I didn't want to just like say it out loud because, you know, I just didn't want to draw attention to it. I tell her, she was like, okay. And then it had been running through my head that I remembered that all the buses had cameras in the front and the back. And so if anything actually did happen and nobody believed me, they could go back and watch the tapes. So I thought that was the end of it right there. I thought that it was going to be over. Like, I didn't think anything really was going to happen about it. I had gone home. I had told my parents because it's my parents. As I had gotten off the bus, my friend Kayla texted me later, like 10 minutes when she had gotten dropped off. She's like, I told my parents too, and I told the bus driver. And I was like, okay, they heard it from 2 mouths now. In the mornings, I wouldn't take the bus to school. I would wait a little bit, get dropped off, because that way I had more time in the morning. That next morning, I had woken up, and then I just got driven to school. So I didn't see my bus driver before school had happened. I was starting to freak out a little bit that if something were to happen, would they come and find me? Like, I was thinking worst case scenario, would I get attacked? Would they come and get me? I did not know. I was like, this was never happened to me. I didn't know what to expect. Then it happened. I was in math class as it was happening, and I remember it vividly because all day I was just thinking about it, and math was like my second to last class during the day. And I remember it was a day that I had a test to do, and so I was already kind of stressed out about that, like finishing the test in time. I was sitting there right next to the door, and right next to the door are the phones that you can use. As soon as the phone started ringing, I knew. I had been waiting all day for it to happen. My teacher answers it. She's like, Noah, they need you down in the office for some reason. I was in my math class, and my friend Kayla was in history at the time, and the two classes were opposite each other on the hallway. I had like stood there for a second, like expecting Kayla to get a phone call too, to be called down to the office, which never happened. Like, that's when panic mode started to set in a little bit, because I was like, I have to do this by myself. Like, she's not coming with me. But then at the same time, I was like, maybe it's not what I'm thinking. Like, maybe I'm just getting called down because I need like a note or something like that. Wrong. Completely wrong. The front desk lady was saying how she's like, oh, she's in the back waiting for you. I was like, who do you mean by she? The front desk person was like, oh, the principal. And I was like, the principal. Okay. The principal wasn't there at the time. She was like talking to someone else in a different office. But you know who was there? The police chief of my town. So me, already stress level here, I was like, alarms were going off in my head, and I was like, my blood, I could feel it like pulsing. I was like, I did not ask to get involved in all of this stuff. And I had known him before because he taught us like a drug abuse resistance class back when we were in 5th grade. So I had known him, not personally, but enough to like be comfortable around him. He had started asking me questions about what had happened, and I had just recalled this story exactly how I had yesterday, exactly how I'm telling it to you right now. And I was like, whoa, am I gonna be like put in the newspaper? Like, that was the thing. If you were put in the newspaper, you had made it. I was like, I'm gonna get put in the newspaper for this. But then I'm like, I'm gonna get put in the newspaper for this. I think they're gonna find me. I need to leave. I need to move. I need to change my name. His interview with me kind of gets over with. He's like, thank you. You can go back to class. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I didn't finish a math test of all the things. I was sitting there the entire time. And I was like, I need to finish my math test. I'm kind of glad I did this, but I also, like, I guess I shouldn't have, looking back at it now. But I had told an older friend of mine who was a freshman about what happened on the bus. She had texted me that night, and she was like, dude, she's like, you gotta hear this. She had said that the high school where Damon and Greg were, had gone into lockdown for a period of time that day, and they had the patrol police dogs out sniffing the lockers. And what do you know? They found stuff. They found marijuana, weed, in Greg's locker, who had sold it to Damon the day before. So obviously he had more. It's not just like a one-time thing. This was like a full-blown like drug deal gone wrong now. Like it was completely busted. And he ended up getting arrested for it and going to juvie for several days, I'm pretty sure. So like looking back at it now, basically almost a year later, oh me, like I stopped a drug deal, and like it makes a good story time video for YouTube and everything. I never thought anything like this would happen ever, and it did. Like if I had not sat in that seat, would I have seen what was going on? If I wasn't sitting next to my friend, I probably would have just like listened to music and looked out the window. I was there at that time for a reason, and I stopped a drug deal. So there you guys go. That was the story time of how I stopped a drug deal. Not right in the middle of it, but I had stopped it from happening again. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed recalling it. And if you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be leaving all my social media down below. I hope you all have a good day. I will see you all next time. Bye!